Okay. Good evening. Did everybody hear me all right? Yes. Okay, because I didn't hear you. So let's try that again. Good evening. That's better. Welcome to the kickoff program of the 2026 Greatstone Viaduct Winter Lecture Series. It's great to see you all out here tonight. We are very grateful to be a partner with the Greatstone Viaduct Historical Education Society for this series. We've done this since 2013, and that makes this our 14th year partnering with the Greatstone Viaduct Society. And as you can imagine, it takes a lot of work to coordinate these weekly programs and presentations every year, year after year, and bring you something new. So I ask you all to give a round of applause for all the people from the Viaduct Society and the library who have been instrumental in planning this series every year. For those of you who are regular attendees, thank you for coming back despite all of my bad puns last year. Luckily for you, you get a reprieve tonight. I speak Fargo, not Hoopie, so I'm more of a yeah, you sure you bet you kind of person than he is. So I'm going to leave that to the expert here. And for those of you who are new, we're thrilled to see you here tonight. I hope you come back in the weeks to come. We've got some good programs coming up. We've got coal, canals, Civil War colonels, prisons, ghosts, spies, and scoundrels, and much, much more. And you'll get my bad puns if you come back in the future. To see all of those programs, we do have brochures on that back table. You can't miss it. It's got the big Bel Air Public Library on it. It also has all of our brochures for all of the rest of our programs. We've got a lot of programs for kids. We've got a new program for teens. And then I have to mention that this Saturday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., we will have the first of 5 authors festivals here at the library. That will be down here in this activity room. We will have 18 authors from the Ohio Valley set up, if the snow holds out. And even if the snow does come, we're hoping that we still get all 18. But it is a risk in winter. But it'll be a great opportunity to talk to some local authors and buy some books. Celebrated local author Rob Newcomb will be giving a seminar at 11 a.m. It'll be a little late to do it at 11 p.m. His latest book, The Last Hitman, was released December 2nd, 2025 by a subsidiary of Simon & Schuster. So he will be doing a seminar on writing and writing tips and how to get published, finding an agent, that kind of thing. That's at 11 a.m. So the public is welcome and encouraged to come to that and to come and talk to all of the authors. You don't have to be a writer to come to the event, just talking to people and talking to books and meeting authors. So 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. this Saturday, and again, there's a 8.5 by 11 poster over there that you can take for that. Now, it wouldn't be a partnership without the Greatstone Viaduct Society, so I'm going to turn the mic over to the committee chair for the Winter Lecture Series, Erica Keller, and she'll tell you a little bit about the Greatstone Viaduct Society.
Thank you, and thank you so much to Erin. She does a tremendous amount with the lecture series. These lectures are wonderful, and she just finds the most interesting topics, and we're so grateful for Erin and the entire public library. They're bringing so much to Bel Air. There's so many programs. It's amazing. If you haven't checked out some of their programs, you've got to check them out, especially if you have young ones. It's just fantastic. They're doing a fantastic job here. So let's give them a round of applause. Great job. Well, it's so nice to see so many familiar faces. We're so glad we're back. Another winter lecture series, and we've had a big year since you guys were here last. So if you're not a Greatstone Viaduct member and you would like to be, I'll talk about that in just a second. But if you are a Greatstone Viaduct member, you might have gotten your year in review, and so we've had a lot of exciting stuff in 2025 since we've been here last. We had a B&O convention here in Bel Air, and it was Dan, how many did we have at the B&O convention?
Between 50 and 60.
Yeah, and they were so enthusiastic, and they came here and represented the B&O Railroad and came to the viaduct, and it was wonderful. if you might have noticed, the farmer's market has also moved to the viaduct area. And we had an exciting, we talked about our caboose, and our caboose is getting very close to being done. So we're hoping very soon you guys will see a nice shiny caboose down at the park area by the plaza. It is not ready, but it's a lot closer than it was. And we've received some exciting awards this year. The 2025 National Brownville Conference was held in Chicago, Illinois, and we received some accommodations there. We've had a great year. We're continuing to do all the things that we had hoped to do, and we're continuing to try to develop a lot of things in Blair, our park. And you guys have seen some major changes down there in this last year. We have grass, we have sidewalks, we have drainage, we have a lot of things and a lot of exciting things to come. And so now that brings us to 2026, and we're off to another winter lecture series. And we have a great winter lecture series for you guys this year. We know that one of the things people love to see is crime, murder, drama, the supernatural. We've got lots of it coming this year. And if you are not a member of the Great Stone Viaduct, I would really urge anyone that isn't to join. And we do have membership letters here tonight. And with a $50 membership, you get something very special. Dan Frizzy has collaborated with the Blair Public Library. You donated all your pictures. And these are exclusive, so if you don't get them here, like I feel like I'm on TV, only on TV right now. And these are collected photos that Dan has taken. How many years, Dan, are here? Like
The first calendar set is from 1990 to 92.
So 1990 to 1992, I was a sophomore. So this will be the first calendar in a series for 5 years. They're going to produce these photos. What will the next one? Is the next one another year, Dan?
Next year will be from like 93 to 95, 96.
And you get one of these free with a membership. So we're not selling these. So if you would like to get one of these, it comes with a membership. It's great. We have calendars here tonight. We have membership letters here tonight. It also, there's more to come with your membership. Also, if you've ever been on one of our trips, we have 2 trips planned for this year. We've got a little bit more details to work out, but our first trip will be the Age of Steam Roundhouse. If you've ever been to the Roundhouse in Sugar Creek, that is currently where our caboose is housed. And so we don't know if we'll visit it while we're there. We're hoping it is here before that. But if you've never been there, it is immense, and it is unbelievable. And that will be one of our trips. And if you're a member, you get a discount on the trip. And also, we'll be traveling to Harper's Ferry in the fall. And also, if you're a member, you get a discount on the trip. So if you would like to do some traveling, become a member, you get a membership, you get a calendar, you get a discount. Great deal. And we have something exciting next week coming up. Our next presentation for next week will be a fan favorite. You guys might remember Alan Fitzpatrick has come and spoke with us before, and he'll be presenting next week, Captured by the Mingo, a historical narrative. And in collaboration with Native American sources, his book will reveal the uses of the historic narrative, which happens to the white captives taken by Native warriors during the battle for control of the Ohio County in the latter half of the 18th century. And if you've ever listened to Alan, the historical facts that he breaks out are unbelievable. His research is incredible. More than 1,200 white captives were adopted and assimilated into the Mingo, Shawnee, Lenape, Delaware, and Wyandot tribes who never returned to the colonial frontier when given the opportunity to do so, but rather stayed and intermarried. Historians and psychologists to the present do not understand the unique transformation that caused Felix Resnick of Virginia in 1798 to say, "It is easy to make an Indian out of a white man, but hard, if not impossible, to reclaim the white man after being converted." So if you're interested in that next week, that'll be a fantastic presentation by Alan Fitzpatrick, and we hope to see you again next week. And if anyone, like I said, is interested in anything coming up, please talk to any of the members of the Viaduct Society tonight. Visit our table back there. We have some interesting stuff, and we have memberships, and we would love to have you as a member, because I think we have a lot of great stuff to come, and I think it's a great opportunity for us to better Blair, and we'd love to have you. So look forward to some of you becoming members, and if you have any questions at all, please let us know. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Erica. Now, for those of you who have been attending programs for a long time, I am going to request, out of respect for our speaker tonight, that you all silence your cell phones before we get started here. And I'm looking at my cell phone on the floor there, wondering if I've remembered to do that. We'll take care of that. Okay, on with the show. Fred Miller is a retired newspaper journalist whose funny, sentimental stories have been published as weekly columns in the East Liverpool Review for over 40 years. After retirement, Fred picked 50 of the best columns to put in a book titled Worshrags, Shark and Seed, for the pseudonyms used for his children. When he told his wife he was ready to publish, she said, "Too late, all your friends are dead." Some must have survived, though, because the book sold out, and he has since published 2 more collections of 100 columns each, Falling Under Honey's Spell and A Dead Carp on Shadyside Avenue, both of which are available tonight for $10. Yeah, cheap. So go and see him after the program here. In addition to family stories, Fred's columns take a wry look at everyday life and local history, often discussing spoken dialect and the northern migration of Hoopies from the hills and hollers along the Ohio River. His version of the Hoopie-English Dictionary is a reader favorite and won a top honors in column writing from the Associated Press in Ohio. Fred and his wife Karen, a retired veterinarian, reside in a historic family farm near New Cumberland, West Virginia. This column appears every Monday in the Review. Please welcome Fred Miller.
I'm gonna move this over. I decided this is the wrong side for it. Okay, as you can see, this is an educational program. As you can also see, the high technology that I employ in trying to present this message. There will be questions asked, and there are prizes for correct answers. The prizes are doorknobs. These are from East Liverpool. They were made in East Liverpool by the millions of dozens, shipped in barrels. And they're on the doors of America now, the old doors of America. And the brown ones are called mineral. The black ones are called jet. Now this is just a brown one that hasn't been glazed, which is a bisque fire. And then there's the one that has mixed colors of clay, and it's called scrottled. So mineral, jet, and scrottled. So if you get a right answer, and you tell Erica, I would like the scrottled, I would like the mineral, but you have to say that, and she'll bring it back to you. Okay. So yeah, I worked in newspapers. I'm a newsman, but mostly it's about writing stories. To me, that's what news has been. I'm not a hard-bitten newsman. I'm somebody that believes in telling stories. And so that's what I've done all my life. Whether I was working in public relations, if I was in public relations, I was telling a story about the people where I worked. I worked for City Hospital, and I worked for PA Cyber Charter School in public relations. But through most of those years, I kept on writing the column, and I have written somewhere around 800 columns over the past 40 years. So to start off, before I deal in what is Hoopie and where is Hoopie, how many here, raise your hands, how many people are familiar with the term Hoopie? So this is maybe preaching to the choir, but maybe not. All right. Now you can raise your hand if any of these apply to you. You may be a Hoopie if you have hung your coat in a clothes press. Okay, for those who don't know what a clothes press is, it's a closet. We lived in a farmhouse built in 1840 on our farm. The closets are about a foot deep because that's all the clothes they had that fit in there. Yeah, clothes press. You may be a hoopie if in your house cardboard was called pasteboard. Anybody for that? Okay. And rubber bands were called what?
Gum band.
Gum bands. Okay. You may be a hoopie if your ancestors are buried in places like Sistersville, Pomeroy, and Meigs County. Anybody here? Okay. And you want to be buried there too. Frank Dawson had Dawson Funeral Home up in East Liverpool.
Yeah.
Does everybody hear me all right here?
Yeah.
Okay. It was Frank's father, who was also named Frank, had it before he did. And before that, it was the Sturgis Funeral Home. And that's when they shot Pretty Boy Floyd in Dixonville behind East Liverpool. They laid him out at the Sturgis Funeral Home. And people walked by to see him. They also made masks. They made death masks of Pretty Boy Floyd. There are at least 3 or 4 of them still extant. And I think the police department has one. I'm not sure where the other ones are. But, and there's also been a book written about that. You may have been lucky enough to get a copy. And I passed it up at the time, and I'm kicking myself for it. A woman in Chester who had a channel to spirits went out to where Pretty Boy Floyd was killed in Dixonville and established contact with his ghost, his spirit, and brought him back home to Chester. And he lived with her in Chester. They went to Walmart. They watched soap operas. They slept together. Now, they couldn't do anything, but they slept together, according to her book. And if you talk to her, everything that she says seems very reasonable. She also talked him into going back to Oklahoma to see his mother. But she said that he had been locked in that place where he was killed until he was told, you don't have to stay here. So anyway, Frank Dawson, I started out with the funeral home. Frank Dawson had the funeral home. He has taken so many bodies back to Lincoln County, West Virginia, to the Kuntz Funeral Home, that he was practically a member of the Kuntz family. Now, Kuntz Funeral Home in Lincoln County and Hamlin, do they mean anything special to anybody here? No Lincoln Countyans? Well, a lot of Adkins, my mother was an Adkins, came up from Lincoln County. Now, she didn't come necessarily as a Hoopie. She married my father, who was an agricultural agent who was stationed down there. And he moved all around. They moved, I think, 11 times in 10 years. He was farm manager. Now, at the time, places like things like county prison farms and children's homes, they were on farms with the idea that they grew some of their own food, and the people who were interned there or lived there helped to produce the food. So anyway, he worked at men's, I think first at the women's state prison at Penn Springs, West Virginia. And I didn't know this until like a few years ago. But the reason they left there after 6 months was that the women inmates cornered my dad and pulled his pants down. And my dad said, that's it, I'm out of here. But he went to the men's, and it was tough on my mother because she had all the women to take care of the kids, cook the meals, clean the house. So she didn't have to do much of anything. My 2 sisters were living at that time. And so they went to the men's prison. And he only stayed there for about 6 months because we had 2 girls. my two older sisters were young girls, and my mother was not happy about that because they get friendly with the men. My sister wrote something here that I had forgotten until the other day. My sister Jean, or Peg, wrote, the inmates frequently sat on their porch in the summertime with their shirts off. Joe was our favorite. He had sweet and butter tattooed over his nipples. I later learned Mom was terrified for us kids the entire time we lived there. Jeannie began 4th grade, and I began 2nd in the local school district. So, I guess what I'm leading to is I have Hoopie roots, and when I talk about Hoopies, and when I tell Hoopie jokes, I'm a Hoopie, so I can do that. All right. Hoopie was a pejorative term back in the day. And as one person wrote to me, if you called somebody a Hoopie, you might get a squirt of tobacco juice in your face because it was a great insult at the time. Now it's like Okies from Oklahoma. That people are proud of their Hoopie heritage, I think. I hope most of the time. So you may be a Hoopie. I lost my paper. You may be a Hoopie. By the way, my talk should be called Digressions because I just wander off. You may be a Hoopie if a visit to your ancestral farm involves crossing a swinging bridge. I see some heads nodding for that. I didn't know my parents drank, but until I was older. You grow up and there's no liquor in the house, or anything, and you think, wow, my parents didn't drink that. Well, they did, until my dad was carrying my sister Jeannie across the swinging bridge to the house on the other side of Mud River. Mud River, that's the name of the river. Now that's a Hoopie name, Mud River. Just like Fish Creek. Fish Creek. The people in East Liverpool, there was a guy who took his friend down to Fish Creek to kill him. Found the body down there. It's a big tourist destination. It's down home. Anyway. So yeah, that was the end. It was whiskey, at the time, and everybody smoked. My mother didn't smoke, but everybody smoked. My dad died of lung cancer. Okay, you may be a Hoopie if you have had personal experience with outhouses. Okay, yeah. I have one outhouse joke. Do you know why you take 2 red corn cobs and 1 white corn cob with you when you go to the outhouse? No? See if you're done? Close. You use a red one. Then you use the white one to see if you need the other red one. And while we're on that subject, why in the world do they have 2 holes in outhouses? Why are they 2 holes? Who would have a reason that they have 2 holes?
Mother and a child.
A mother and a child. I would call Erica to give you one of these. Would you, right here, you want to pick out a doorknob for that answer? Yeah. That's the only thing that makes sense to me would be potty training. You're sitting there with your daughter or your son and you're potty training the kid, and to keep from falling through, too. A little bit more on outhouses later. You may be a Hoopie if you've ever eaten roadkill. You hit a deer, well, at least you put meat on the table, right? Does anybody have done that? You've hit a deer and you've gutted it and taken it home? I have done that. My wife hit a deer. We're on close on the border with Pennsylvania, and she hit a deer coming home from work just inside of Pennsylvania. So, and it was injured, but somebody stopped and shot it, so she put it in the trunk and put it in the back of the car, brought it home, and at that time I had never hunted deer. And I called my brother-in-law to find out how to gut it and what to do with it. And he told me, how to do that. And our kids were little, and they came out, and, we got the heart and the lungs, and we looked at all that. It was educational. And then I was stupid then. I called the state police to report it in Pennsylvania. And they said, well, we'll have the game warden call you. Okay. So the game warden called, and he said, I'm going to have to come down and claim that deer. I said, well, why? My wife hit it. I mean, can't we keep the deer? And he said, no, because she hit it in Pennsylvania. And so I have to reclaim it. And I said, well, how do you know it wasn't a West Virginia deer that just wandered across the line? He came and he took the deer. I had it hanging up from the porch. He took the deer. Oh, that's funny. Well, we have a farm and we raise pumpkins. We have a pumpkin patch every fall. Money goes all to the grandsons. And they do all right. Last year was terrible. The year before that, we made about $6,000. So that's split 3 ways between grandsons. But I tell people, I don't get any pleasure out of hunting deer. But I tell people I don't hunt for sport or pleasure. I hunt for revenge because they eat my gardens. They eat everything. So you may be a hoopie. We can keep on going with this for a long time.
Go for it.
If you've ever gotten into an argument with somebody about the correct pronunciation of Yunz. Okay, for a doorknob. Yunz is a contraction of 2 words. What 2 words? Yunz. Give her a doorknob. What kind do you want?
Light brown one. I forget.
No. You have to say the name. You want the mineral. Okay, she wants a mineral. Yeah, that's right. Okay, there you go. Yunz. It's a contraction. A few years ago, I ran across a small book that was titled, I think it was A Journey to Ohio in 1810. And it was the journal or the diary of a young woman from Connecticut who made the arduous trek across Pennsylvania, the Ridge and Valley, in November and December, coming across in this bed bug inns and the teamsters and things. And there was a passage where she said that the men driving the wagons, they keep using the word Yunz, and I don't know what it means. So this is 1810, and these guys were mostly Scotch-Irish. Now you can say Scotch-Irish or Scots-Irish, doesn't matter. So we know that it was in use at that time. The reason that people said Yunz was the same reason they say y'all, because it pluralizes the pronoun you. There is no plural for the pronoun you. If you're not sure whether you're talking about you people, you an individual, but by saying Yunz, then you're talking about more than one person. In New York, they would say use. And of course, in the South, they say y'all. But that's a way of pluralizing the word you, pronoun you. So, in Pittsburgh, they call it yins, and they're proud yinzers. But so it should be a proper term. The Scotch-Irish came to America, the Protestant Scotch-Irish. Anybody Scotch-Irish heritage? probably quite a few. In the early 1700s, 1715 to the Revolutionary War, and some thereafter, these were the Protestants from the Ulster Plantation, Northern Ireland. And it's a little boring. The English kings, you start reading about them and it's confusing. But James the First of England, who was James the Sixth of Scotland, and he got the throne, he wanted to reward, he was doing well in the wars that they had over Scotland and Ireland, and they dispossessed a bunch of the Irish in Northern Ireland, and they put a bunch of Scots over there. And then later, his son, I'm not sure anymore, the next king, Charles I, the one they beheaded, Charles I did some things that he didn't like those people because they weren't really paying attention. He wanted to anglicize them. He wanted the Church of England, and they were Presbyterians, Unitarians. They were Protestants, and so they said the heck with that, and he was taxing them and other things. And so there was this wave of immigration in the early 1700s. By the time of the Revolutionary War and thereafter, about 1 person in 6 in America was Scotch-Irish or Scotch-Irish immediate ancestor. So there were a lot of them, and they came, or that English, like Northern England, bordering Scotland, lowland England. So the English that these people spoke was of that era, the early 1700s. And when they came over here, they came across the mountains and found this place. It looked like home. And they stayed here on their small farms back up a holler.
Yeah.
My mother, when she talked about somebody that was remote, would say they lived so far up a holler they had to pipe the sunlight in. The reason that the land was like this was because of the Wisconsin Glacier. 12,000 years ago, the glacier retreated. It had come down and turned the flow of rivers to the Mississippi. Now, there was, this is something that's happened really just in the last half century that they've confirmed this. There was a huge river that came across, it's the headwaters of the New River is the beginning, which is a funny name because it's the oldest river in the country. And it cuts across the Ridge and Valley District. So the New River that goes into the Gauley and Kanawha, it was once a tremendous river that flowed across Ohio, Illinois, Indiana before meeting up with the Mississippi. The glacier interrupted that. And the Ohio at the time, there was drainage south in the Ohio, but it wasn't great like it is now. The northern part of the Ohio River, and I'll say from New Martinsville north and south, is the dividing line. That was the elevation where the dividing line was. The river that flowed, the ancient prehistoric river that flowed north toward the St. Lawrence Seaway, toward the Great Lakes, was, they call it the Steubenville River. Of course, we don't know what they call it then, but it was a minor stream. And it flowed north into Beaver Creek. I don't know if you know that, in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. It flowed north, not south. Beaver Creek flows south now into the Ohio River. If you look at the map of West Virginia and you see where the Panhandle, the Ohio River makes that U-turn after it comes from Pittsburgh, or at least left-hand turn, goes south. The glacier, there are 2 lakes. One was north of New Martinsville, left by the retreating glacier. The other one was the Taze River. The Taze River is the one that went from across all these states, blocked by the glacier. This area south past Huntington was a gigantic prehistoric lake named Lake Tight, T-I-G-H-T, if you want to look it up on the internet. Very interesting stuff. And so all there were the islands were the tops of the mountains. And when the dams broke on these two lakes, they obliterated the divide at New Martinsville, and the Ohio came south. That's why the river valley is so deep and narrow. If you compare it to river valleys like the Mississippi, this has very steep sides. So, and the drainage was dendritic, from dendrite, which is Greek for tree, branches of a tree, the veins on a leaf. It's dendritic drainage. That means we were on a plateau, and if you look across the tops of the mountains, you can see they're all level. Because I was told we were on the Appalachian Plateau. Where's the plateau? All I see are hills. Well, the tops of the hills were the plateau, and it's eroded down in between. All right, well, that's geology. So the people who came across, the Scots-Irish, they settled here because it seemed like home. And they brought their language and their customs with them and their way of life, and they kept it up in the hollows. In the 19th century, there was a movement. Of course, the French tried to keep all English and everything out of their language. And the English objected to Americanisms, corrupting the English language. And so, but what they eventually found out was a lot of these American words were actually archaic English words that had been up in the mountains so far before they came out and then became commonplace. If you ever read about H.L. Mencken, who was influential newspaper editor and writer, who wrote the Book of American English and talked about how these things came about. That's an interesting part of it. But the dialect that we speak, I call it Hoopie. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of a lot of things, but a good bit of it is from the people who came up the river. All right. For doorknob, who knows where the term Hoopie came from?
People who made the metal bands around the barrels.
No.
The wooden bands around the
The wooden bands.
Wooden bands.
What kind of doorknob do you want?
Oh, Jeff. Thank you.
George Washington's diary, 1770, as he came through here on his surveying. He was a great land speculator, by the way, you probably know. He said, I also marked an ash and hoopwood for the beginning of another corner of the soldier's survey. 1854 Bancroft history said George Washington would set his mark on a maple or elm or a hoopwood or ash as the corner of a soldier's survey. So exactly what they were calling a hoopwood, ash would seem right to me. You named the other, I don't know. Still don't know what he was talking about with the hoopwood. But East Liverpool made dishes, plates, saucers, every kind of pottery thing you can imagine. And they shipped them mostly to Western markets on packet boats. First on flat boats, later on packet boats. I'm getting a little dry here. Coffee. There was not sufficient amount of hoopwood in the East Liverpool area, but in the lower parts like Meigs County, Pomeroy, Point Pleasant, especially places south along the Ohio River, people would cut bundles of hoop poles. Tall hoop poles that could be split. They split them and put them in a vat of brine at the cooper's shop that was outside of every pottery where they made the barrels. And these wooden hoops were notched, bent around barrels and nailed in, and they made the hoops. So when the poor people themselves came up the river looking for work in the potteries and later in the steel mills, and later, not the same river, but in Akron, which I'll get into, they called them poor dumb Hoopies. They were largely uneducated and unskilled, but they wanted to work. And let's see. I have a description of it. Oh, here, I'll tell you, this is a personal story. A fellow named Floyd Bentz, his son Francis, who was 90, had called me and we talked. He said approximately 1922, Floyd Bentz, around the age of 16, jumped onto a packet boat named the Betsy Ann. Captain Gill met with a crew of young boys, including Floyd, in Long Bottom, Ohio, near Pomeroy, and he announced a golden opportunity to travel up the Ohio River to Pittsburgh, PA. They were moving hoop poles, and the captain needed young muscles. Floyd left without telling his mother, yelled to his sister, and said, "Tell Mom I'm leaving." When his sister told their mother he was leaving, she ran for the boat, but it was too late. It was gone. So people came up the river looking for work. Now, in that particular case, he worked for the riverboat man for a while. Later on, Floyd settled down in East Liverpool, got a job at the Homer Laughlin, China, worked in the slip house where clay was mixed, moved on to a steel mill owned by Crucible, where he was a millwright and maintenance man. But when Floyd would want to go back to his home, then the Captain Gill on the Betsy Ann would drop him off, and then when the Betsy Ann came back up the river, he would stand up on the hill waving a lit newspaper as a signal, and he would stop and pick him up. So that was one story, but that was repeated over and over again. And if you look at obituaries in the East Liverpool paper, you'll see people were born in West Virginia and places in Ohio, south of here, and then they would usually want to go back home. When I was working as a columnist, I had heard the term hoopie, but I never had really a good explanation of it. So I asked in print for people to let me know, what was a hoopie? Where is hoopie? Who are Hoopies? What did they do? I got this one. He didn't sign it. He just said a half Hoopie. He said the Hoopies went home when they made enough money to buy a car. Every payday weekend, they would load their clothes in the car and go to Tyler County for a good home-cooked meal on a wood stove. Hang their clothes in the smokehouse after they were washed and dried. Of course, it's washed and dried. So that they could smell the smoke the next 2 weeks while they worked. And that is so. I have went down a couple trips with them, even brought a little pig back one time, carried it on my lap like a pup. So the Hoopies, now they also went to Akron. You may not know. Did you know Akron's known as West Virginia's largest city?
No.
I think it's time for some jokes. Okay, in Akron, I heard this joke two different ways. One, they taught them the 3 R's, reading, writing, Route 77, where they went back home. And the other way was they taught them reading, writing, and what was the one to come up in?
The route to Akron.
And the route to Akron, yeah. And another joke about Akron is, did you hear that the governor's back in the mansion in West Virginia? No, I didn't hear that. What happened? He said he got laid off at Cyberlink or Goodyear, or whatever the rubber plant was you wanted to name. So there was a nice article I found. Now he called them hillbillies because they didn't use the term hoopie. Hoopie is a very localized term. If you go outside of the valley, from Pittsburgh to about here, they know what hoopies are. If you go down in Hoopie, they don't know they live in Hoopies. They don't know they're Hoopies. It's only after they come north and we tell them they're Hoopies that they know they're Hoopies. So he called this guy, his grandfather came up from Western Kentucky and worked in Akron. But they said it was something like 200,000 came up to Akron, immigrated to Akron. That's what the correct term for that would be a diaspora. So it's part of the diaspora of people out of the mountain state looking for work and some a good future. But this fellow talks about why they wanted to employ them. I got this more than one different direction here. Though dismissively and disparagingly called hillbillies, these southern whites, and they wouldn't let the blacks work, these southern whites were preferred over even locals by the rubber companies. That was because, as author John Tully said, they were hard workers and often individualistic in outlook, reflecting their origins as spiritually independent, small owners of farmlands. This made them less susceptible to unionization and meant they could be easily returned by simply allowing them to go back home when production slackened. That very mobility, however, also meant they were resented by locals who saw them as having no city pride or no interest in taking their wages and returning home. And the article says, that these hillbilly migrants were ones who made Akron the world rubber capital. Jokes. Birch Cartwright, who was personnel director at Homer Laughlin, China, told me there were 6 Italians who were employed at the pottery. And one of them complained to his foreman. He said, "I don't know why it takes our people so long to learn English when Hoopies can learn it in 6 weeks." As I said, it's a very localized term. When I first started giving this talk, and that's been 40 years ago, I spoke to a Rotary Club in Lisbon. I spoke to another one in Warren, Ohio. And I asked who knew what a Hoopie was. And in both places, the person raised their hand and said, "State Trooper." So I'm pretty sure that in Columbiana County, there was some mean state trooper Hoopie who was giving out tickets, and that's why they all thought a Hoopie was the guy that was a state trooper. But it's a localized term. Years ago, when I was at WVU, we went to Pitt for a football game. And over on the student section, they unfurled a bed sheet on which somebody had written, all the way across the stadium, had written "Hoopies rape sheep." One of the 3 great lies in West Virginia. I didn't know she was my sister. My favorite Hoopie joke is a man walking across the Newell Bridge, and he only had one shoe on. And he met a friend, and the friend said, "What happened? Did you lose a shoe?" And he said, "No, I found one." But Hoopies, they're suspicious of authority, of government. They're clannish. They're family people. They have traditional families, their values, and they make do with what they've got. Part of it's depression, but my mother used to save her aluminum foil. Does anybody else's mother wash aluminum foil and save it? Yeah. Now, after a while, you could hold it up, and it was like looking at a planetarium. You could just see this star, all the holes in it. But, yeah. So, you might be a Hoopie if you've ever trimmed an out-of-reach tree branch with a shotgun. You've done that? Yeah. I mean, there's some dudes just can't get to it. A couple shots, and you need to practice anyway, right? If you've ever had ramp breath, I don't think I've ever had ramps, but they're good. Okay, some ramps fans here. If you think that fried mush is not bad at all, that buckwheat cakes are tasty, and fried sorghum molasses over fresh biscuits is heaven on earth. Have you had fried sorghum molasses? You know what sorghum molasses is? Okay, well that's it. The sorghum cane will grow as far north as this, so you can process it, and cook it to make sugar. But you make it's dark, black strap molasses, some people would call it. But if you put that in a hot skillet, what it does is it froths up. And then you take that and just spread it on a fresh biscuit. And boy, is that good. My grandfather, Adkins, was born in 1869. And I knew him. When you think of the span of time that covers, 4 years after the Civil War, he was a deputy assessor in southern West Virginia and rode on horseback across the hills. We're related by marriage to the Hatfields. Heenan Hatfield is the one that married an aunt, much removed, but I guess they sent him to Chicago to keep from being shot. Our family, my grandfather's family, was in a feud with the Spurlocks, who had squatted on a plot of land and timbered it. And that was adjudicated, and I think they eventually got the land back, but of course the timber was gone. But that was a bad feud there. But his first wife died in childbirth. He had 2 children, and he married Leela Jane Adkins. Now, Adkins married an Adkins. Okay, for a doorknob, does anybody know what the term Adkins comes from? No takers on this. It's English for Adam's kin. You've got the gentry and the priests and the guildsmen, the merchants, and you've got Adam's kin. Everybody else, the peasants, Adam's kin. Now, supposedly, I think it's through my grandmother. My grandfather, his line was traced by somebody back to Sir Francis Drake's brother, which I don't know if that's right or not. And on my grandmother's side, traced back to Princess Blue Sky, who was Chief Cornstalk's daughter. I don't know if that's for sure or not either, but it might be. It got lonely out here on the frontier, right? So there's a lot of intermarriage. And that Alan Fitzpatrick, I saw him speak and learned from him why, what's her name, Pocahontas, the senator?
Elizabeth Warren.
Well, Elizabeth Warren. They couldn't find any DNA to match, find any Indian DNA. Alan explained that is because even, as late as that, there had been so much white brought into the tribes that the DNA was already mixed up. I mean, and the Indians don't do anything by DNA. They do it by genealogy. Who married who, your family. So, you might be a Hoopie if you've ever eaten pawpaws. Pawpaws. If you've ever been tricked into eating a green persimmon, what do they do? they pucker your mouth. It's like alum and green persimmon. That's a national fruits of Hoopie if Hoopie was a country. If your mother ever spit washed your face on the way to church. If you know what a grinny is, it's a squirrel. It's a chipmunk, right? A grinny. A ground squirrel. Grinny. It's a local term. Or if you know what a paradiddle is. Paradiddle?
Yeah, I've seen one.
They're a little squirrel, pine squirrel. Pine squirrels are also called paradiddles. So we have our own vocabulary. How's my time doing? Have I already used up my 45 minutes?
You got 5 minutes.
How much?
I heard somebody.
Oh, okay, all right.
Oh, you're fine.
You're doing
All right.
good.
I have to read this one. This was a letter of complaint. This was dated April 18, 1991. Mr. Miller, once again you have stepped on my toes. If you can't write anything constructive, why don't you quit? Your remarks about Hoopies really made me angry. I'm a Hoopie, and your version of how we talk is really an insult. I think you need to write an apology to the people of Hoopie. I thought about that, and I thought, well, let's suppose I put an apology in the Parkersburg paper apologizing to the people of the Hoopie. Nobody would know who I was talking to, right? Because they don't know they live in Hoopie. I define Hoopie pretty much, it's both sides of the river. A lot of people think it's West Virginians. Well, it is, but it's also Ohioans. It's both sides of the river that came up, the people who came north looking for work. So, I intend to call the paper and complain. So, anyway, I hope she did. That's great. I got a call from a man named Varian down in Florida. And I hope, I don't know, there was a group of cops, I think there were 5 of them, who burglarized stores and businesses in East Liverpool. And they got caught and did some time and then left town. And I think one of them was named Barry. And so the guy that called me from Florida was named Barry. I don't know if it's the same guy. He was one of the cops. But anyway, what he called me about was about Hoopie. He said, you haven't talked about a Hoopie squint. And I said, well, what is a Hoopie squint? And he said, well, it's like when you're trying to see if something's level. You get down and you give it a Hoopie squint, So plumb or level or anything else like that, you just, and Hoopies are handy, usually. They may not be well educated, but they're handy, and they know a lot. The person I would call the greatest Hoopie is Chuck Yeager. And you know who Chuck Yeager was. He was in my Uncle Lou's class in high school at Hamlin. Uncle Lou was always mad at him because he wouldn't come to the class reunions. Chuck Yeager was the first man to fly faster than sound. Tom Wolfe, when he wrote the book The Right Stuff and they made the movie, he was the one in there that said he was the one that had the right stuff, Chuck Yeager. He was shot down. He was a P-51 fighter pilot, World War II, was shot down over Germany, made his way back with the help of the French resistance through Spain. And then the armies said, you've done your job, you can go home. And he said, I don't want to go home. And so he had to appeal to Eisenhower to get permission to go back and start flying missions again. He had 13 enemy planes shot down. And when he came after the war, he went down as a test pilot. He had extraordinarily good vision and reflexes and everything. I mean, he was a pilot's pilot. And actually, I think the accent that he had was credited with what all airline pilots, when they get on and they announce something, if you hear a little bit of Southern drawl, that was probably from Chuck Yeager, because he had that West Virginia twang, and they adopted that because it was reassuring, I guess. But anyway, he flew the Bell X-1, the rocket plane. And at the time, nobody had flown faster than the speed of sound. And when they approached it, the plane began to shake, and some planes went to pieces, and pilots died. And so he was supposed to fly the plane and try to break that speed limit. And I think he was drunk, and when he fell off a horse, he just said he had a disagreement with the horse. But this was southwestern New Mexico, wherever the airfield was. He fell off, the horse broke 2 ribs. And then 2 days later, he was supposed to fly this plane, and he couldn't, because his ribs hurt, he couldn't get the door closed. So he had to get a friend to help him, and they got a broom handle, and they rigged it up so that he could latch the door from the inside. And so that was, when he flew faster than sound, it was with 2 broken ribs, and he shouldn't have been flying at all. But he didn't have a college education, so he wasn't put into the astronaut program. But he was the best pilot probably among the group that they did select. So I would say Chuck Yeager is probably the greatest West Virginian, greatest Hoopie. My sister Peg, who was in the Army, met him once at Osan Air Force Base in Korea. She was postmistress there, and she introduced herself, said, "My mother's Lucille Adkins," and Chuck Yeager said, "I knew from looking at you that you were an Adkins." You don't just say Adkins, you say Adkins, and if there's more than one, they're Adkinses. And there's a lot of them. A lot of them came up East River. That's a joke. Let's do a few sayings, and then we'll kind of wrap this up a little bit. Part of the way of speaking and the way of expressing ourselves is in idiomatic speech. We speak in idioms. They may be baseball similes or metaphors. The older generation, they would be agricultural maybe. But the ones that came up from down river, my mother, we learned that as we grew up, and that was our natural way of talking. And I'm sure for a lot of you it is. They just come to mind, and a familiar idiom expresses a lot in a few words. And some of the ones that, they call them down-home sayings. Some of the, like, slow as molasses in January, and ugly as a mud fence, mad as an old wet hen. There's ones I'm sure you've heard of. Something, you look like something the cat drug in. Did you ever hear anybody say you look like the wreck of the Hesperus?
Yeah, that's what our papers say.
Did you? Okay. What does that mean?
Ugly.
Ugly. Okay. I think she should get a door knock for that, because that's close enough.
Call you what?
My mother, when the girls would be ready to go to church and they just, weren't ready, they all messed up. My mother, that was what my mother would say. You look like the wreck of the Hesperus. Well, I finally looked up Wreck of the Hesperus. It was a poem by Longfellow. And it's about a captain who took his ship out in bad weather, in icy cold weather, against all advice. And his daughter, beautiful young daughter, was on the boat. And, he lashed her to the mast, and he was frozen at the helm, and the ship wrecked. When they found, the wreck and the washed up on the beach, there was the young girl with her golden hair flowing, back and forth in the salt water. And so it was not necessarily ugly. It was, you don't look very good. You're not in good shape right now.
Unattractive.
Yeah, your hair is messed. You look like the wreck of the Hesper. So it's the girl. It's not the ship. It's the girl. Wreck of the Hespers. That's one of my favorite ones. I already told you about it, living up so far a hall where they have to pipe the sunlight in. How about crazy as a Bessie bug? Have you ever heard that one?
I heard bed bug.
Crazy
Crazy as a bed bug.
No, crazy as a Bessie bug. Anybody? No? That was one of my mother's. How about as independent as a hog on ice? What does it mean?
Going everywhere.
Going everywhere. Anybody else want to give it a try?
Going all different directions.
Because you're on the ice.
I would fear he would fall through the ice.
Would fall through the ice. Somebody else? Give it a shot?
Nobody can really help because it's out of control.
Out of control. Well, that's what it would seem to suggest. But my mother used it in the way that I think that, well, I have a book here that's titled Hog on Ice, by a man who researched that and a bunch of other sayings. This guy it's a educated man who did a lot of research. And I know when my mother used it, it would also always be disparaging about somebody who thought too much of themselves and were in over their head maybe, or they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing, but they were independent. They thought but they were really out of control. And this guy, he at length researched it. He called and contacted a lot of different experts, researched it diligently. He said it couldn't have been English in origin. He thought it was American. He thought it was Irish, but it wasn't. Number one, there's no ice in Ireland, and they don't call them hogs. They call them pigs in Ireland. It's the same thing in England. They call them pigs. But he narrowed it down to the sport of curling that came from Scotland. And because it refers to a stone that has not made it far enough down to be in play, and it's just blocking the ice. It's an obstruction. It's more important than it should be. And he said actually in curling there is a line. It has to proceed more than 5/6 of the distance, or they remove it. If it's a hog on ice, you take it off. So there you go. As you're watching curling with the Winter Olympics, you see if they call any hogs.
Think of you.
All right. Old as Methuselah, thin as a rail, rich as Croesus. Who was Croesus? Who? Croesus. Rich as Croesus. He was a king. He was a rich king. Like the Midas story. Croesus was a very rich king. And there's a tale there if you want to look that up. It's interesting. Running around like a chicken with its head cut off. How many have actually seen a chicken running around with its head cut off? Yeah. My mother would hang them by their feet alive so they would bleed out. My grandmother would sell the chickens, the hens. How about feeling poor as Job's turkey? My mother said, you look as poor as Job's turkey.
It's biblical.
Well, it's biblical, of course, but I don't think there really was a turkey. But the second part of it is he was feeling so poorly he had to lean against the fence to gobble. turkey had, so poor he had to lean against the fence to gobble. One she used a lot was to explain people was poor people have poor ways. Have you heard that? I mean, that explained a lot when people would get into trouble or something, or they do something they shouldn't have, and she'd say, well, poor people have poor ways. And another one that she said, and you probably have heard, is there's no fool like an old fool. Yeah. There are two that I had never heard until late in her life, she had told me. One was, if you tell somebody something that they obviously already know how to do, if you're trying to tell them how to do something and they know more than you do, she said, that's like telling a grandmother how to pluck a goose. And you would pluck the goose for, why would you do that? To get the down for the pillows, right? You're plucking the real fine feathers to make a pillow. Yeah. It's like telling a grandmother how to pluck a goose. And the other one was, she used that to describe her friend Eleanor, who did not marry well. She said she drove her ducks to a poor market. So, anyway. I mentioned Chuck Yeager. Somebody else that I think should be regarded as an ancestor of Hoopies is the Emperor Vespasian, who was Roman emperor right after Nero. He was a very successful Roman emperor, but he lived very simply. He wore the same clothes as his soldiers. He was a general first. And he ate the same food as they did. He slept on the ground like they did. And when he became emperor, he still kept his poor ways, his simple ways. Now, he didn't go crazy like so many of the emperors did. And the thing that made me decide he must have been an ancestor, at least in spirit, of the Hoopies, was the Romans had torn down an old temple. And what Vespasian went down and rooted around in the rubble until he found something, a little statue or something, he found something of interest. He dug it out and he carried it home. One way that you know you're a Hoopie is if you bring back more from the dump than you took. That's my son. People throw away a lot of good stuff. You really do.
You might be able to use this.
Yeah, we actually live right next. The recycling center is just like right next to our farm. And I stop in there and shop occasionally. But I'll take something down, and there'll be nice set of lawn furniture there. So, you guys want that? No, take it. No. People throw away good stuff. So Hoopies are very frugal, and they get by with what they have. Oh, there's one story about a gasket. No. I can find it. I think I lost it. Anyway, what happened was a man who was in service wanted a particular kind of car, and he got his dad to buy it for him. Found it, and here it is. He said Don served on an aircraft carrier during Vietnam. His wife lived with mother and stepdad during his deployment, passed along to him his wish to buy a certain make and model car. When he came home, stepdad had seen one that very day on his home from work at Crucible Steel. The owner, it turned out, had recently brought it down in Hoopie and was willing to sell. He said, I drove the car a couple years when I worked at Shippingport, which is the first nuclear power plant, but discovered there was no heater. I started diagnosing the problem, decided to focus on the thermostat. When it was removed, I discovered a previous owner had used corrugated cardboard as a gasket. I showed it to my stepfather and asked, what kind of hoopy deal is this? Cardboard for a gasket. He responded, well, it worked, didn't it? So that's pretty much it. Okay, we'll go through the dialect here. As I say, the dialect that we use, the way that we speak, we think we speak like Dan Rather used to speak, but we don't. We have certain words we use, inflections. They come from different origins, but a lot of them came up from the South. So, without further ado, we're going to try to teach you to speak better Hoopie. You already speak Hoopie. You may not know it. Try to teach you to speak better Hoopie. All right, how do you say this? Washington. Washington. And it's not just Washington, it's the one in Pennsylvania is Little Washington. Okay? Pronounce that. Pittsburgh. Stillers. Short I. Stillers. I heard on the radio, and coming out of East Liverpool, man say, I really got a good deal on that wriggle. What's a wriggle? It's Buick. The Regal. Yeah, a wriggle. I really got a good deal. Another place, there's a used car place called Good Wheels. They don't say it that way. They say Goodwills. Goodwills. Okay, now this is the Stillers. All right, it's Mills on Wheels. Mills on Wheels. So some words we changed the vowel from long to short. Okay. Flar. Yeah. Mel. Did the mailman come yet?
Yeah.
Not the mailman. I mean, do you look, when you get up and you brush your teeth, what do you look into? Mirror. A mirror. Yeah. You look into a mirror. Does anybody say mirror? Mirror. I looked in the mirror and I couldn't believe what I saw. Okay. Towel. Okay. All right. Now here we're changing a short I to a long I. Feet for long E. Fish. Cushion. Double O. Not cushion. Cushion. Okay. Now, with some words we change long vowels into short ones, as in filled. Did you see the football team had a great backfield? I went up to Springfield. I went to the fair at Canfield. Dill, right? How about this one? Wow. Not wild. Wow. Okay? And that makes this mouth. Really? Okay. And chow. My childhood. If you listen, you hear it. All right. Gel. There was an escape from the gel. That makes this. There was a big hailstorm. Cell. There was a program on Wohi local radio AM station. It was very popular. People would get on to advertise things, and it was always for sale, not for sale. It was for sale. And foul. What's that thing that you use on your nails? It's not a nail file, it's a nail file, right? And that, of course, is mal. I walked a mile for a camel. Okay. When I worked at the paper, there was a man that called and said, you should go out to West Point. There's a small town called West Point. Actually, General Morgan surrendered right there as a tree. He surrendered. But he wasn't there. He went down to Wellsville and surrendered his sword to the guy that owned the hotel where they put him up. So the Wellsville Historical Society has Morgan's Raiders, has his sword that he surrendered to the owner of the hotel. The rest of his troops surrendered up at West Point, little town. So he said, you should go out to West Point. There is a fartar out there. I said, a what? He said, there's a fartar. You should take a picture of that. It's interesting. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't understand what you're saying. He said, a fartar? So a tower to watch for fires is a fartar, but a tire on fire is a tar-far. All right, some words we change word vowels into long ones, as in fish, dish, addition. The commissioners met. All right. Yeah. President Bush. Yeah, my dad, some of the words he used were, I guess, Scotch-Irish, but it was not wheelbarrow. It was wheelbarrow or wheelbarry. And it was not cherry, it was churry. Now, sometimes we change sounds unaccountably, as we already talk about mira, bara. I'd like to borrow or bari. Do you ever hear bresh? Bresh pile? That was from my dad too. Bresh, gonna burn a bresh pile. And that one, you get everything. Nuclear. Yeah, a nuclear plant. All right, some words we add sounds to. How do you say that? Across. I walked across the street. I have 2 cousins. Cousin. Once. I went there once.
Yeah.
I went there twice. He had that T sound at the end of it. Wasn't just born, he was borned. Or born. He was born. And then drowned. You said, did he drown? No, he was drowned.
Yeah.
Listen to how we talk. I'm not saying it's bad. It just is. English add masonry. The same thing they do with aluminum, it's aluminium. Yeah, is British. Afghan. My grandmother knitted this Afghan. Yeah, and yeah, film. We added a syllable to it, and then camera. We take a syllable away. It's not a camera. It's a camera. Right? Arthritis. Mammiogram. You ever hear that? Mammiogram. How do you say that word? Not tarpaulin. Tarpaulin, like Napoleon. That's what everybody just said. You said tarpaulin. It's a tarpaulin. Okay. Escape. He escaped from the jail. All right. So, in other words, we leave sounds out. Library. Yeah. which is where we are, a library. This is such a nice library, I just gotta say. Length,
Yeah.
we don't say length very often. We say length. What's the length? What's its length? Yeah. And strength. Strength.
Huh.
I'll tell you another football on myself. I just reminded me of it. I was talking to a group of women, home economics up at the senior center. And they had, it was like a regional meeting of women. And I had a microphone in one hand and I had my papers in the other hand. And what I intended to do was to lick my thumb and turn the page. Instead, what I had the microphone in this hand, I licked the microphone. And then I looked at everybody, and everybody saw it. Okay. We add and leave out sounds, both. Chimley, yeah. Chimley. How do you say that? Do you say isn't?
Isn't.
She isn't at home.
Yes.
Does anybody put a D in it? He isn't there. He isn't. Is he at home? He is. They isn't. Well, doesn't. Doesn't that girl look nice? D-U-D. Doesn't.
Yeah.
An attack, we add a T to that. Attacked. I had a gallbladder attacked. We also use words that nobody else uses. What's nibby mean?
Nosy.
Nosy. I think it's Yiddish. I'm not sure. And granny, of course, is a ground, yeah, chipmunk, ground squirrel. That's Amish. Red up means to clean up. Yeah, red out.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we talked about Ewans. And we use terms that nobody else uses. When I graduated from WVU, 5 best years of your life, my wife had 3 years in. She got accepted to vet school. She's the smart one in the equation here. So we went out to Oklahoma. And when we asked for directions, people would say, oh, go north and turn back south, and then you go east a couple blocks. And it's like, do I look like I have a compass? Here we give directions for up and down and behind and in front. They live up and back of Bel Air. Which way does the river flow? It flows down. I'm going down to Bel Air. I'm going up to Bel Air. Depends on where you are. East Liverpool, there's where the line comes up from the Mason-Dixon into the Mason-Dixon line, which didn't go quite far enough to get the Ohio River because it was so many miles from the point, the low river point, the Delaware River, to west. That was the end of the Mason-Dixon line that William Penn got from Pennsylvania. So actually I had a lady contact me recently who wrote a paper on that. I shared where Judge Reddick was buried. Judge Reddick had himself buried on the Pennsylvania-Virginia line, later the West Virginia line. Pennsylvania-Virginia line, he was a lawyer and a judge. So he had himself buried with his head in Virginia and his feet in Pennsylvania. And the idea was if the devil came after him in Pennsylvania, he'd slip into West Virginia and vice versa if they came after him. And he was a local boogeyman. And the stories go that eventually devil showed up with Ritz from Richmond and Harrisburg and turned him into a stallion and rode him on Halloween night. But she wanted to know where Judge Reddick was buried, so I showed her Judge Reddick's tomb. But the point of beginning is across the Ohio River from where that line comes up, and then you have the Ohio and Pennsylvania on either side. That point of beginning is the beginning of the survey of the 7 ranges. One of the, all 13 colonies were supposed to send surveyors, only 7 did, I think. One of them was named Martin. He later came down and started a ferry service. You may have heard of that.
Yeah. Martin's Ferry.
Yeah, Martin's Ferry. So he was one of the surveyors that was in on that. But that started the system of townships and ranges that is used throughout the West. And that's why all the Western states are squared off, and why in Oklahoma you go every mile there's a township line road, you know. So here we give directions differently. We talk about up and down and behind. Butt sept, that's one my kids came up with, and I've heard that from some other people. I would have had my homework butt sept, so they can combine words. And leave out, what does leave out mean? Omit. Okay, well, omit the dog. So if you leave out the dog, and they say, well, leave out the dog means leave him out there. It also means let him out. Okay, we're almost done. All right. Now, here's a bad one. R. 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 Right? I've seen 2 signs. And I've seen it in print, too. The local motel that had a restaurant, they said, try our pizza, A-R-E, pizza. And then there's owl. There's a winged owl. There's I'll see you tomorrow. And there's a church owl. And then there's the tropical owl.
Wow.
They're all the same. Owl. Okay. Okay. What are these? What's the English pronunciation of these? Trial and error. Heels on wheels. Tire iron. Tar iron. Tar iron. Wheelbarrow. And then nail foul. Nail foul.
Oh, jeez.
Okay, here, let's try to say this together. I took a shower, washed off floor, smelled the floors, dropped the towel on the towel. Very good. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. Okay. I've gone over my time limit. I know. I don't care. I don't care if you do or not. Kara is my what do you call it? My agent here. Kara, tell them how good my books are and why they should buy them.
Oh, I think they're an excellent collection of stories.
Speak up. They can't hear you.
You've got books up there for $10, and they're an excellent collection of stories. He had 3, but 1 sold out. So you gotta get the other 2.
Well, anyway, yeah, the story she told about that for years I said I was going to put my columns into a book, and when I finally got around to it, my wife said, "It's too late. All your fans are dead." But there were enough of them to buy the first book and sold it out. But I've got these last 2, and my wife's rule is I can't put out another book. I've got plenty of material until I sell enough of these to help pay for the printing. So, any questions? You guys have been great. And I tell you what, I've got a bunch of doorknobs. Come up and get some. I've got a bucket here someplace that has some more in it. I mined those. As I said, they made them in East Liverpool. And of course, these are the ones that were rejects for whatever reason. They touched each other, they dripped or whatever. And so they dumped them along the river. And in, I think, 1988, they put in the new sewer system. I call it the new sewer system because it was in. And they dug this pit, this big square excavation, and they hit a vein of doorknobs. And so I had an old LTD that my dad had passed on to me. And so every day after work, when I could do it, I'd go over with 5-gallon buckets and I would drift mine the doorknobs out. And I counted, how many were in a bucket, how many buckets. I got about 10,000. Question, yes.
You just say drifted?
Drift mine, yeah.
Okay, because there is a thing, I fight for mines, especially coal mining, drift mines.
You're mining the vein, right? Yeah, drift mine. But I just scooped them out and washed them up. And actually, for the Tri-State Pottery Festival, we had them packaged and sold them. So, but I've still got about maybe 3,000 in my barn. So, and any other questions? I've kept you here longer than I should have. Yes,
I just had a brief comment about the WU Pitt game you went to.
yes, sir.
You saw a sign.
Yes.
Do you remember the comment the announcer made that I got a fire at Pitt?
No.
West Virginia car was car lights on. The West Virginia license plate E-I-E-I-O. And he got fired.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Anybody else? Anybody? What are you gonna do? The drawing? Okay.
You get to pick the number.
Oh, I get to pick the number. If I pick my own, do I still win?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there's two different ones. Okay.
The last 4 digits.
The last 4 digits. Okay.
This is for the door prize. This is for
Okay.
the.
This is the door prize?
Yeah.
Okay. The door prize is 074. Last 4 digits. Might be mine. Nope. Somebody else. We pull another one? Okay, nobody claims it. 054. It's the red ticket. The red ticket.
Red ticket.
054. Oh, okay.
She's got the 074.
I couldn't find it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I know.
Okay, and this one is for the baskets. This is for the basket. And the last 3 digits are 914. Okay, got a winner. You've been very patient with me. Thank you very much. As I learned in 4-H when we were taught to do public speaking, we end it with the statement that thank you for your kind attention, and I will bring you more information at a later date. So, thank you very much.